A young couple is relocating to their gorgeous new flat on a typical afternoon in the city. They have plenty of boxes of their own to unload, but when they find an old, weird refrigerator that the landlord left behind, they are taken aback. Rob thinks it really interesting that this ancient model has the motor above rather than underneath like newer models. However, Gail is not at all intrigued. Gail then brings her husband a bottle of wine, and Rob eagerly opens the refrigerator to fetch ice. He remarks on how the freezer is like Superman's fortress of solitude, because it's filled with stale, nasty frost. The pair then raises a glass in celebration of their new union. But before Rob can taste, he discovers there is an oddity in the ice. Gail affirms she is seeing something as well when he asks if he is seeing something after grabbing it to examine it. She grabs a magnifying glass for a closer look just to be sure, and it turns out there is a tiny mammoth inside the cube, its body pierced by numerous spears. What she discovers shocks her. Rob follows shortly after and confirms their refrigerator obviously contains a small lost civilization. The entire medieval city is there on the ice, with tiny small people going about their everyday lives without noticing the two giants who are watching them as if it were a movie. In addition to moving very quickly, these little individuals are hard at work building their cities and making progress. Rob only agrees to amuse her because he doesn't know anything about history. Gail tries to cheer him up by stating the tiny animal will make fine fertilizer because it seems to have made him quite depressed. Shocked by what they discover, the tiny civilization has rapidly advanced to the point where it is now experiencing the Industrial Revolution. With all kinds, Rob wonders if the locals consider him and Gail to be giants as he observes two small men sitting near to a construction site. The tiny civilization quickly begins to change once more, with the construction of contemporary structures picking up speed. Gail recognizes the objects flying about as aeroplanes after Rob does. She also takes note of the brand new skyscrapers, which leads her to believe that the tiny society has advanced to the present. When Rob sees a Starbucks, he nods in agreement. Rob then becomes aware of something odd and moves in closer for a better look. When a missile detonates in the midst of the city at that precise moment, it blinds Rob and causes him to retreat until he hits. Gail runs to Rob's side to try to calm him down as screams can be heard coming from the freezer. But Rob doesn't seem to be getting any better as he points out that Gail closes the freezer out of frustration, emphasizing that people do not simply outgrow war in a short period of time. Gail merely advises them to eat pizza when Rob asks what they should do in the evening, and makes an effort to wait patiently, but ultimately Rob loses patience and suggests they reopen the freezer. Surprisingly, the tiny settlement has developed into a futuristic metropolis with flying automobiles and flashing lights that remind Gail of Emerald City from The Wizard of Oz. Rob is in awe at how gorgeous and sophisticated everything is when a structure that looks like an adult toy suddenly appears in front of them. In the heart of the tiny city, a massive pyramid-shaped building also appears. The building, however, abruptly changes into a Rob and Gail watch in awe and with wide smiles as the ensuing glow resembles a star and shoots out lovely dashes of light that start to flutter. When Rob wonders if the little people will ever return, Gail responds that it is unlikely. Rob unplugs the refrigerator because he needs to grieve and get over the loss of the little people. Gail comforts him with a hug and then closes the freezer, thinking that they are finished for the day. The fact that a new ice age is happening inside the freezer, and that it has primitive Homo sapiens consuming the enormous bodies of prehistoric species, is an even larger. A Tyrannosaurus Rex roars loudly at that precise time and sprints after the apes, capturing one in the air with its enormous mouth before chasing the one who just crashed to the ground.